What's up, y'all? Today we're going to talk about my favorite vintage and thrifted items that I've acquired over the years. Let's get into it. So to kick off this list, we'll start with one of my more recent vintage pickups, this 1970s-ish Levi's corduroy shearling line trucker. This is one of my favorite recent jackets that I've gotten. So this jacket is really similar to kind of a traditional Levi's Type 2, but with quite a few design differences. The body is a blend of cotton and polyester, and the liner is like a acrylic polyester blend, which was pretty popular for the time. And then what's cool about this jacket is the sleeves are actually lined with kind of I think it's just polyester again, but it's so that whenever you're putting your arms through, if you have long sleeves under it, they're not gonna get caught up on a more rough material. It's kind of like a very slick material so that your arms slide through nicely. But one of the reasons I really love this jacket is just its cropped length. While we would consider this cropped now, this was like a really common shape for jackets of this era. If you look at old Levi's Type 1 and Type 2 jackets, they were very short in the body. Now, I originally got this jacket because I have my good like denim jacket, but I wanted something, one, that was a little bit warmer and something that just wasn't denim, so that if I was wearing my typical blue denim pants, it didn't give off the Canadian tux look, which I like to wear on occasion, but I just like to have options. So it was nice to have something that contrasted well with navy and was a little bit warmer for those days where a denim jacket just wouldn't do. A lot of times, what you're looking for has already been made decades ago, and you could probably find it for cheaper than you would find a brand new version of the same jacket today. Also too, some of those older fits you just can't find today because they're technically out of style, but styles always kind of come back, and cropped jackets are now really popular, so these 70s style jackets just work really well. Now, my next favorite vintage item on this list is actually also a recommendation for anyone wanting to get into vintage clothing, vintage menswear, and that's just the Levi's 501s. This pair that I have is about from the 90s, which I realize also technically makes me vintage, which I haven't really come to terms with. I guess the only thing I can hope is that I'm as cool as a pair of Levi's 501s. But basically, it's Levi's flagship jean. It's been around since the 50s, and it's been kind of universally the most flattering jeans that Levi's makes. Throughout the decades, the fit changed a little bit throughout each generation, but for the most part, you can rely on them to fit relatively well and not be super crazy. Now, 501 has been around for quite a while, so you're guaranteed to find one that fits you really well. And this pair that I have is kind of the perfect light wash for me, but it's got just the right amount of distressing around the cuffs, and it's that nice light blue. I love how these have a little bit of fraying in the cuff without being too crazy. And even though there was a couple of holes, I was able to repair them with a darning technique that I actually just found a video for online. Now, like the Levi's 501, the next item on this list is something that I think could be a staple in anyone's wardrobe, and that's just a basic crew neck sweater. Now, the one I got is a Russell Athletic one, I think from maybe the 80s or 90s. And you really have to hold one of these old Russell Athletic or Champion sweaters or hoodies to really get a sense of the quality. It really is incredible that they've held up so well after so many years. Now, I typically see these old crew necks in pretty rough condition, so it was important for me to kind of take my time and find one that was in really good condition, and this one that I found was, other than a little bit of pilling in the cuffs around the waist and the arms, it was pretty much brand new. No stains, no holes, so I was pretty happy about that. Now, in this kind of realm of like vintage men's fleece athletic wear from the US, there's kind of two dominant brands, and that's Champion and Russell. Champion is kind of known for its reverse weave fabric, which is invented, I think, sometime in like the 20s or 30s, but it didn't patent it until the 50s. And what was so revolutionary about it was really because Champion was selling to colleges and high schools and things like that. And the colleges were getting frustrated with these athletic sweatshirts that would continually shrink and change their shape. So Champion basically just turned the fabric on the side whenever it built the sweater. So instead of shrinking vertically, it would shrink horizontally, but that would always just kind of stretch out. So it was never really a big deal. And so Champion became kind of the choice for colleges and high schools and things like that that needed some sweatshirts with their team's logo or something like that on them. But Russell actually invented the crew neck. The guy that started Russell Athletic, he wanted something that was a little more comfortable than the wool football jerseys he was used to wearing at the time. And so he invented the crew neck sweatshirt. So I kind of like that heritage story along with the company. So that was one of the reasons I chose Russell over Champion when I was searching for a vintage crew neck sweatshirt. This next piece really excites me, and it's my first thrifted piece on this list. And the reason I'm so excited about this one specifically is just the brand. Now, to kind of differentiate thrifting and vintage, you can find modern pieces at a thrift store, where vintage pieces are typically from the 90s and older, and they're curated by the owner, where thrift stores are basically just people's donations. So when I saw this at the thrift store, I was surprised and amazed that anyone would be getting rid of it. But it's this De Bonne Facture linen chore coat. I'm actually wearing it right now. It's 100% linen, made in France. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about it is basically just the brand. So if you don't know, De Bonne Facture is a French brand owned by a French woman. I'm not gonna try and pronounce her name because I'm probably gonna destroy it. I'll put it in the little lower part of the screen here. I really love De Bonne Facture's approach to production. So instead of just having one place that produces all of their garments, they actually seek out kind of small ateliers and producers to make each one of their garments based on that producer's skills with the garment. So basically, if the producer is known for making good chore coats, then they'll seek out that producer to make their chore coat. It may seem like a lot of work, but what you end up with is a product that's really well made, uses high quality materials, and De Bonne Facture can basically oversee the whole process of the garment. But this also means the garment comes at a price. So when I was doing my research to try and figure out the retail price of this jacket, I couldn't find this specific one, mostly because I think currently we're in the fall winter season and this is very clearly a summer jacket. But you can find this jacket in a wool on De Bonne Facture's website, and it retails for about $650, almost $700. So whenever I saw this at the thrift store for only 60 bucks, I knew I had to have it. Not just because I like the company so much, but also because it's just really cool. Especially because I live in a really hot climate, having something that's 100% linen and also gives me a little utility with these extra pockets, I think it's just gonna be my go-to all summer. You never know what people or why people might be getting rid of something. Whenever I saw this on the rack, I noticed it had a couple buttons missing, and immediately I thought, well, why would someone get rid of something that's so nice? And I think they just either didn't want to take the time to reattach the button themselves, or they just didn't think that it could be done. You just never know. Basically, after I bought it, I took it home. It took me maybe 5 minutes to reattach the buttons myself because they were actually in the pockets of the jacket. And it's pretty much brand new now. Okay, so I need to kind of burn through these next two because I'm losing light pretty quickly. But this next one is a De Gala Guayavera shirt from I think like the 60s or 70s. It's 100% polyester, which normally I wouldn't reach for, but this is a very substantial feeling polyester. It's almost got like a suit structure to it. It's so kind of thick and heavy, but it's also a mesh, so it's super breathable and great for those days when I just want to like throw something on that looks a little bit nicer than a t-shirt. But let's say I'm going to a swimming hole and afterwards I want to grab something to eat. It's the perfect one for that. Now, as a native Texan and someone who grew up on a horse ranch, I feel like I'll always have a good pair of cowboy boots, even just to go out and do a night of two-stepping or something. And so this next pair is just that. It was just an inexpensive old pair of cowboy boots. Even though the upper part of the boot is a little beat up, the rest of the boot was in really good shape and fit my foot really well. The only thing I really know about these boots specifically is that they were made in Texas, which I thought that was kind of cool. But basically, these are just my boots that I reach for whenever I want a more kind of Western look. And for 25 bucks, I don't think you could beat them. Now I want to dedicate a little bit of time to this next item on my list, and that is my Leica M3. Now, for those that don't know, Leica is kind of like the Rolex of cameras. They're known for just incredible engineering. They've been around for, I think, over a century now at this point. And their flagship camera is their M series of cameras. We have amazing cameras on us at all times typically. If you have a smartphone, you probably have a pretty incredible camera. But the reason I like shooting with my Leica is because it kind of forces me to slow down and think about what I'm taking a photo of. And then once I'm done taking that photo, I can just move on. I don't have to scroll through all the different shots I just got. There's no gimmicks with it. There's no AI. It's basically the most pure distillation of photography that I think you can access right now. Now, to round out this list, these last two items are the only two items that I didn't buy at a vintage or thrift store, but rather inherited from my grandfather. And that is his 1950s or 60s crownwear long coat and his 1972 Omega Constellation. Now, I'll admit, in the past, long coats haven't really been my thing, but since acquiring my granddad's long coat, I've actually found some really cool ways that I enjoy styling it. And one thing I really love about it is just the details. If you look closely at the buttons, they almost look like they're wrapped in leather. I think they're just carved a certain way, but there was thought put into it. The material itself, even though it's polyester, is really heavy duty and it feels substantial and just has a beautiful texture to it. Traditionally, I feel like around this time, coats like this were tailored. Thankfully, my grandfather and I guess, have similar proportions because it seems to fit me pretty well. And another cool feature of it is it's got this really cool zip out liner. So if it's a little too warm for the whole coat, you can just take the liner out and it's a little bit lighter weight. Now, as far as utility goes, there's not much to the coat. It's just got two hand warmer pockets and that's pretty much it. But it's just a really neat thing to have. I love the weight of it. And I've actually found that I think I'm a long coat convert now. Even though I wear watches like every day and have since like high school, I've never really considered myself a watch guy. I haven't dug too deep into some of the more notorious and well-known watchmakers, but I know of them. I know of Rolex, I know of Omega. Now, this model specifically is the Omega Constellation, which is not, I guess, as well known as some of Omega's other offerings like the Speedmaster, but it's actually Omega's oldest timepiece that they still have made in production. My granddad's specific one is from the 70s, and I know that because it's got the birth date that this watch was gifted to him on. And maybe I'm biased because it was his, but I really love the look. I love how minimal and small the watch is. I feel like watches in general have just gotten very big, so I think it almost looks kind of more elegant to have like a smaller watch. It doesn't have the original band. That was a band that was added on afterwards by my granddad. It's got a couple of little touches that make it sentimental to me, like the fact that the names of my dad and my aunts and my grandmother are engraved in the bottom of the casing. And the watch still works, thankfully, but I think something is messed up with the crown to where I can't set the time. So I'm actually in the process. I've reached out to Omega, and they said there's only like 4 people at the company that can repair watches made before 1990. I guess they're certified for it. So that's like my current goal right now, is to get it fully repaired so that I can set the time and continue to wear it. Alrighty, y'all, I think that just about does it for this video. If you have anything to say, let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. I think my next video I might talk about t-shirts. We'll see y'all in the next one.